Thanks for listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, joined by the great William Brad Alice. Hello, William. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Michael. How are you?
All kinds of good stuff. Going on. All right, now we are going to talk we're going to talk a lot of Arizona football. We're going to talk some under the radar recruits. We're going to talk some players that we look at and we're like, all right, the probably could be a little bit bigger than we thought. But first, Brad, the Big 12 is out. They have their preseason media rankings. Arizona checks in at 5. Now, there's probably 5 teams that are going to be preseason ranked, so we can't really, I think, flip out about that one too much. What did you think about Arizona at 5? And then I'll give you my thoughts.
I think it's fair. I thought Arizona would be anywhere from 3 to 5, maybe even 6. Right. Obviously, you look at it, they get a lot back, but there's going to be the doubters about losing your coach. There's going to be doubters who just aren't familiar with Arizona football because that's a lot of Big 12 pundits, obviously. So I think it's fair. It's expected. I think the teams they have ranked ahead of them are all capable of being that good. My guess is also that, we're going to see it not shake out quite the same. I got a lot of questions about all the teams ahead of them as well.
All right, well, let's talk about number one. I do not quite listen, under Utah, with Kyle Whittingham, Cam Rising is obviously, and, they've obviously been a very nice pairing. And Kyle Whittingham has obviously been a very good coach. But this is also a quarterback that won't have played in 2 years. To me, that is interesting. This isn't a guy that tore his ACL and missed, half of the season, is ready to go. This is a player that will have essentially not played football in 20 months. That one to me is fascinating, Brad.
See, I think that's what they're counting on. They're counting on him being a veteran presence, a guy who's going to be, 5 years older than some of the guys he's playing against. So they're giving him a lot of credit. But you're right, that's a long layoff. This is a guy who has taken a lot of punishment, a lot of injuries. If he can return to the form of that quarterback we saw lead that comeback against Florida, then they're going to be really, really good. If not, we saw that they were just okay with other quarterbacks not named Cam Rising.
Yeah, all right. Now, let's look at the other one. Kansas State, kind of in the similar boat here. And this is where it's fascinating for me. Kansas State, listen, Will Howard moved on to Ohio State, obviously, but you now have a guy in Avery Johnson, not the little lefty general from the Spurs, but somebody else who has now come in and he started one game and he looked really good. But again, you got them at 2. They lost quite a bit as well. And you got a quarterback that you're not really sure about as well. That one makes me interested in as well, Brad Alice.
I think in many ways they're like Utah. They've been so consistent over the last few years, very, some highs, but not a lot of lows, that you're kind of banking on that. I think Oklahoma State's kind of in the same boat. They've been consistently good. So you're going to go with those teams over a team like Arizona that's had peaks and valleys.
Right. Okay. But
Kansas is a team like Kansas as well.
Kansas is, again, all of these teams are solid. Then you've got obviously Kansas and you got Oklahoma State in there as well. I am going to go out on a limb right now, and I am going to say that I would pick Arizona. Again, I get that there's concerns about Arizona. Here's where. I have a hard time believing that Brent Brennan is going to fall flat on his face. This isn't a first-year coach. He might not be a great coach, but this is a team with a lot of talent. I don't see them, especially with this coaching staff, falling flat on their face or figuring out, 8 games on how to field a football team. I don't see that being the case, Brad.
No, but I also think there's a contingent of people who are giving Jed Fish a lot of credit. And I think there's also some who feel some of last year was fluky. Utah obviously being severely injured when they come to Tucson. Now Arizona throttled them. A couple of those other games, Oklahoma having some players sitting out, things like that Arizona's not getting credit for. But I think it really comes down to a lot of people were just thinking it was all Jed Fish and his staff. And I think they do deserve a lot of credit, but he's one non-tweaked ankle away from 6-6.
I'm going to fight back on that a little bit with the Jed Fish thing. Yes, he deserves credit for putting this roster together, but I'm also going to say as well that, let's be honest here, he did not want to put Noah Fafita out there. And Noah Fafita was a much, much better quarterback than Jayden de Laura. If Jayden de Laura goes out, if Jayden de Laura is playing there, you're probably looking at a 5-7 team, something like that. Keep in mind, this is a team that, lost to a bad Mississippi State team, and Jayden de Laura essentially gave him that game. They were on their way to losing to Stanford before he tweaked his ankle. I can kind of go the other way and say that Arizona would have probably had a better record had they played them.
Yeah, you and I know that. And, that was my comment on the tweaked ankle away from 6-6. But Does John Johnson, the beat writer from the Orlando Sentinel, know that?
Right. Fair enough.
Does I'm making up names, obviously.
Oh, I know. John Johnson.
Rick Smith of the Morgantown Gazette, does he know that? No. What they see is a guy who was literally a National Coach of the Year candidate move on to purpler pastures, and they can think that, maybe that was success. But as you know, I think it's T. Burns there. He's right. Colorado and Oregon State could have easily been losses last year. You could have gotten Utah on a different week, and they could have been a different team.
But USC could, like T. Burns said.
Absolutely. But again, we know that. We watched every minute of Arizona football. Most of the people voting in this poll are just looking at key losses, key additions, starters returning, points, yards per game returning. They're just looking at numbers and trying to figure it out.
And I'll go a step further with it. I think let's use Washington, for example. Arizona outplayed Washington in the second half of that game. That was Noah Fafita's first real start. He was shaky in the first half. Had he been starting pretty much the whole season, you might have seen a different performance as well. See, to me, it was kind of a 10-win team with Noah Fafita in there. I see what people are saying, but I think you can go the other way as well. Now, go ahead, Brad.
Again, that's just my explanation for the poll.
No, I get it. Now, let's talk
plain and simple. Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about the strengths of this team going into Big 12 play. Listen, I've said this for a while now. This team's offense, it needs to be dynamic. It needs to be one of the better offenses in the entire country. It just does. You've got a quarterback, you got an All-American receiver, you got a stable of running backs, you return 4 out of 5 offensive linemen. You need to be able to get that.
Yeah, I think what you have to do is you have to be able to have these guys click in a new scheme, new terminology. You need role players to step up. You need another tight end to step up or two. You need that third and fourth receiver to step up. Because you can't, I don't think, be like Jed Fish and have 2 receivers. Right. You have to figure out your running. And again, I think the running back room is very good, but you have to figure it out. Who's getting what carries, who's what guy. Is Speedy Luke just a third down back? Is he a primary back? How does that? So there's the questions aren't personnel, it's usage and it's depth. And if they could answer those, then yeah, you're absolutely right. This can be, I hate to be that guy, but we've never seen Dino Babers be a 35-point a game guy very often. Right. Syracuse had some okay offenses. He did some very nice things at Arizona 20-something years ago when getting to 30 was an accomplishment in college football. Right. But can he, run a dynamic? And frankly, I think you could almost make the argument that, Jed Fish, offensive genius, his offenses probably didn't score enough points. They slogged down in the red zone. Now, you can say that about a lot of guys because even Rich Rod, who is an offensive innovator, slogged in the red zone quite a bit. So, right. I don't think there are a lot of questions. My questions is it a good offense or it is a great offense? And those are the questions there.
And that's all right. But to me, it's got to be a great offense again. And I'm going to use somebody on Twitter said this, and I think it's a very good point. That you're probably not going to get many quarterbacks that are better than Noah Fafita. You're not going to get a better wide receiver than T-Mac. You've got to be able to, like I said, you got to be able to capitalize on this. I need this to be a top 15 offense. And I think Babers is a question mark. I actually don't have many questions at all about Dwayne Aquino. We're going to get to that in a second, even though he's dealing with a less talented personnel. But I think we're going to know very, very quickly, to be honest with you, if Dino Babers still has that fastball, because there's really no excuse for me for this offense not to be really good.
No, and I think obviously having an offensive head coach, even though he doesn't play a huge role in the offense like Jed Fish tried to, like Rich Rodriguez did, there's going to be accountability there. Right. His offenses at San Jose State, considering the personnel they had, were pretty good. And I do expect that. Again, can they be a team that consistently scores in the 30s and 40s? They have the personnel. Can it all come together?
Yes, exactly. Now, the other thing too that we got to look at is the defensive side of the football. I actually, and this is kind of where William, I think, I'm actually okay with the starting. First of all, I love the DBs outside of the one boundary corner. You've got 4 safeties that can, 3 of them, for a fact can play, from Genesis Smith to Dalton Johnson to Gunnar Maldonado. Obviously, Takario Davis could be a first round pick as well. All of those guys are, all of those guys are big time. Traden Stukes in the nickel, that. So, yes, that one other cornerback is a question mark. But if there is one person, if there is one coach in the country that I think can make that defensive backfield work with a suspect corner, it is Dwayne Aquina.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think with the offenses you see typically in the Big 12 spread offenses, you're not doing a lot of matchup one-on-one stuff. I wouldn't think. I think you're going to see a lot of zones, a lot of, help on that defense. And we don't know they don't have another corner. They have some bodies that they've brought in, whether it's transfers, whether it's young guys. And you're absolutely right. When you have a guy like Dwayne Aquina, a guy who has cranked out award winners and probably gotten snubbed on a couple more, you feel pretty good. If there's any one position, you want a guy to be able to develop, that it's Dwayne Aquina.
All right, now at the linebacker spot, then obviously last year, and I thought you were apropos, but I think he answered the question with Jacob Mano. You're like, all right, the next step for him is to be able to make more tackles near the line of scrimmage, not to be able to make more impactful plays. He did that. I mean, six sacks last year, a bunch of tackles for loss. He became an All-American type. Type linebacker this past year, and I would look for that to continue.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll go down in that lore of like a Scooby Wright, who may not have the great NFL career. And Arizona used to crank out NFL linebackers.
Right.
When I was a kid, from Byron Evans to the Hunleys to those guys. And they haven't done that as much of late. And granted, the linebacker is not as an important position in the NFL either. But they have produced really good, productive linebackers who've had really good college careers. Your Spencer Larsons, your Scooby Wrights, Jacob Manu's that guy.
Right.
Now, can he get help? Again, there's nothing proven, but there's guys who've shown flashes, and there's plenty of potential. We've seen Justin Flo completely disappear, and we've seen him have some dominant quarters. So I think there's some help for Manu. And there's going to have to be, because you're going to need at least one other linebacker. You're going to have a lot of 2 linebacker sets because they're going to go 5-6 DBs quite a bit, but you're going to have guys help up and step up and help them out.
Right. Okay. Now, with the defensive line. Now, of course, we got ASU fans in here. Glenn, ASU was picked to finish last in the conference. We will make fun of ASU here in a second. It's actually not an inexperienced D line. My concern with the D line is the depth. I think the starting 4 is going to be just fine. You bring in Trey Smith, who's an all Mountain West guy. Again, I'm not saying that he's LeVar Arrington, but 7 sacks or whatever.
I think it's interesting. One of his best games was against USC, though.
For sure. That is very interesting. You got him and Ty across from him. I think it's going to be fine. And then the starting D tackles, Kevon Darton was the arguably the best interior pass rusher in the entire ACC last year. And he graded out that way. 5 sacks. Take that, Glenn. And then Chuba May. Hopefully Chuba May can be the BBN, the big Bill Norton, kind of that culture fit, that big land mover as well. I am totally okay with the starting 4. It's the depth that I'm worried about.
Well, you got a couple other intriguing guys. I'm gonna, the kid from Memphis, who was one of the top
great name,
top freshmen in what was that, the AAC? I can't even keep these conferences straight anymore. Conference USA, AAC, whatever it is. So you've got some guys, and you got some unproven guys. You did lose quite a bit off that line, but in reality, you get 3 ends, 4 down linemen, you're probably in decent shape more often than not. And again, you don't need this defense to be great. Desert Swarm's not coming through that door, nor is a defense like that ever again in modern college football. You just need them to be about as good as last year, maybe slightly better, maybe even slightly worse if the offense is better. You just need a solid, decent defense. You do not need Georgia 3 years ago with 7 first-round picks. You just need teams not to score in the 30s consistently.
Yes, that's all you need. Again, I need it to be solid. So now I'm going to ask you this, Brad. Where would you put U of A. If Brad Alice is picking, where does he have Arizona? Are you back in the A? Pick Arizona to win the conference. Do it right now.
I will be super honest. I haven't looked at it. I would probably guess I'd put them somewhere around third.
Right.
The two teams I saw the most of last year, not including the Pac-12 teams, was Kansas and TCU, because they always seemed to be on my TV as I was heading out the door to go coach volleyball. Kansas returns a lot. Leipold's a great coach. I really like that quarterback who was out most of last year. Other than that, I don't really know much what's in the conference. I can't tell you much about Kansas State or Oklahoma State. I know Oklahoma State has that great running back, but he got DUI last night. So, how does that affect the team? My guess is Arizona should be contending for, a spot in Arlington with a week or two left. And whether they can get there or not, I don't know. But I think Arizona is one of the better teams in this conference.
I have the least amount of questions, though, about Arizona's quarterback that I do about all of those teams in the top 5. So that's very, very good.
Kansas' quarterback's really good if he's healthy.
Yes, but he's injury prone.
Really good. Yeah.
Yes, he is very good.
He's injury prone. Yeah, because he puts his body on the line like every play.
Right. Now, let's talk about ASU. ASU picked dead last. Here's the thing. With ASU, they just don't have much talent. You look at their roster, and you're probably maybe 3 guys that would start at the U of A, if that. I mean, there's just not a lot of talent there. I'm not surprised at all that ASU was finished dead last. That ASU was picked dead last. Now, I would like to see them finish ahead of Colorado, but either way, ASU doesn't have much talent.
No. I think Dillingham did a pretty good job last year, and I might be surprised if they finished dead last. But again, I don't know how. I know Houston has had their struggles. I know some of those other teams have been depleted as well. I think this is a very important year for Dillingham, the coach, because he's obviously recruiting at a pretty good level right now. They've done some good things this summer, but he has to show that he can continue to coach a talent deficient team and show signs that talent infusion will pay dividends.
Yes.
And if he can do that, and again, I think to use the comparison, I think we did see that from Fish. Although that 1 in 10 year was awful, that team got better as the year went on, despite losing a lot of guys to injury. Yeah. So again, I think Dillingham is a good coach. Is he the guy to turn the sleeping power? I have no idea, but he's invested, he's recruiting well. And I thought he did a good enough job last year that, I think I did from one of my podcasts back when I was actually consistently doing it. I had my coaching tier rankings, and he was in the group of overachieved.
Yes. Now, also, I got to give, we're going to get to some recruiting here in just a minute. But first, also, let's talk about Colorado. Now, a lot of people are, Colorado's picked to finish 11th in the Big 12. I say, ha, 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 ha. What is your opinion on Deion?
I don't know yet. Mm-hmm. So far, it looks like all sizzle, no steak.
Right.
I think, to me, the shtick, and again, I'm not an 18-year-old kid. The shtick to me is, I like my Lute Olsons. I like my Nick Sabans. I like my I even like my Bobby Bowdens. The shucks.
Right.
The fact they call him Coach Prime, and I get it. They called Coach K, but I didn't like Coach K either.
The guy's an egomaniac. It's about him. Yeah.
It's about him. It's it's about his kids.
Yeah. I mean,
it reminds me of Bronny going 55 to the Lakers. I need to see it. And, last year, frankly, they were lucky to beat Colorado State last year. Colorado State kind of gave away that game. They beat TCU. So I need to see it. I do think there's a chance it does work because, again, a lot of kids want to play for him. But the fact that he had all those kids come in last year and so many of them bolted so quickly means maybe they're seeing through some things. But that said, if a guy is going to turn it around in a place, you either need the perfect guy or you need the perfect gimmick. And I think he does have a really good gimmick.
Well, I do think though that he's going to be gone after this year. If they go 5-7 and his kid leaves and Travis Hunter leaves and all that, I think that they are. I would be surprised if he's still
Health
there.
problems or media opportunity he just can't turn down.
More wants to spend more time with the family. You know, things like that. I could certainly see that being the case.
And frankly, if they win 10 games, then he's probably gone too.
Yes, I would. No, I would agree with that as well. All right, now
I think the worst thing for Deion is to be 7-5.
Yes, I think that is a bad
because
thing.
I don't know how long he wants to be there without his kid playing quarterback.
Okay, now one thing though, Brad, that we do need to talk a little bit about that I think that we've been a little bit remiss in bringing up is Circle K. When was the last time that you went to Circle K, Brad?
Yesterday.
Okay, what'd you get? Fill me in.
You know what I got. You do follow me on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
You know what happened last Thursday?
No, I don't know what happened. What happened? Fill me in.
Flowing Wells won the District 5 Junior League Championship.
Kid, very, very tall now. I did see this.
So what does that mean? That means we have another week of practice because we're going to state. And what does practice mean? It means a blue Gatorade and it means a big bottle of water.
All right. Well, and
every practice, every game. So that's what we're Circle K getting.
Which Circle K do you go to?
Ruth Rothland Choya.
All right, check it out, though. Circle K. Join the Inner Circle for free.
Actually, I also went to River last night on the way home from practice because we picked up burritos. So we went twice.
This is very much what we like to hear. Join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. Be like William Brad Allison. Go there multiple times. You will feel much better about yourself after you go there. All right, now. And the Desert Financial Credit Union. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the Desert Financial Credit Union here, Brad. There's a lot of really good stuff going on. Who doesn't need $200? $200 is very, very good. We all like that. The Desert Financial Credit Union can absolutely do that for you. Check it out. Here's the deal. When you open a free checking account online, get $200 in bonuses. Get started by visiting desertfinancial.com/200 today. I see the Desert Financial Credit Union every time I drive. It is everywhere. Brad, I'm sure you've seen it as well, correct?
Can't miss them.
Yep, exactly. Again, for the people, by the people. Check it out. It is all about community. Like William Brad Alice, who's all over the place, known well throughout the community. So is the Desert Financial Credit Union. So again, check it out. Desert Financial Credit Union. You will thank me later. And again, $200. Brad, what would you do with $200 from Desert Financial Credit Union?
Right now, I got to pay for a hotel up in Goodyear for state, so that's going there.
Well, there you go. All right,
buying Gatorades for the team at Circle K.
Now, Joseph, there will be no. All right, Joseph says, Mike, would there ever be a #MyBadPrime? No, there wouldn't, because I think he's a putz, and I don't think that's changing. So that's why I don't like him. All right, but
Mike, unlike some of these pundits out here, you admit when you're wrong.
I do. I admit when I'm wrong all the time.
All the time. My bad Pella, my bad Gunner.
Yeah.
And so exactly. We just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, my whole thing is, well, no. I mean, listen, if he goes 12-0, I don't like the way that he conducts himself. That's my issue with him, Joseph. So, but I need to ask you this, Brad. Justin Flo. Justin Flo is kind of the superhero that you never see, but everybody wants to see. You're a big fan of superheroes. Listen, you've had 3 coaching staffs now that basically couldn't find a way to really play him. But there is no doubt about it that his quick twitch, his suddenness, his strength, everything about him is very, very impressive, Brad. Is there a way to unlock him? Is there a way to get the most out of Justin Flo?
I think there's 3 answers to that. One is use him exclusively on rundowns. 2 is to try to use him off the corner in a variety of blitzes and pass rush. And the other might be to convert him to tight end.
Right.
Or that hybrid. I don't know exactly how big he is. Because he's a dynamic athlete. And he's a very good linebacker if it was 1997.
Correct.
It's the modern game that seems to, he's not great on passing situations where he has to drop in coverage. So again, there are ways to utilize him, but with the amount of practice time that college teams have compared to the NFL, where you can't have these situational guys. Can you utilize them in that fashion? And I just don't know.
Yes, and the problem is too is that people are like, just put him in on rundowns. There's a problem though. If you don't have your gap integrity on a rundown, you can't play him there as well either. Again, I think everybody would like to be able to. Because physically he looks amazing, but there is also, the mental aspect of the game just has kind of eluded him. And I think that's something that maybe Dwayne Aquina can bring out of him. I don't know, but this is the fourth different DC that he's had now. And at some point that it's on the player. It's not on the coaching staff, William.
Yeah. I mean, there are just some guys who are phenomenal athletes who are not great football players, just as there are great football players who aren't phenomenal athletes.
Right. And, now, what do you think about just unleashing him as a pass rusher? And just saying, go, 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 go get him. What do you say about that?
The problem there is his lack of size.
Okay.
You would have to use him in a variety of blitz packages, but then you kind of know as an OC that he's blitzing. Right. If you line him up at end, then what do? You check down into a run to that end and try to blow him up with a much larger tackle or tight end. Again, I think there are ways to utilize them, but I think you have to just pick your spots. Or you hope that it clicks this year. You hope that Dwayne Aquina is the teacher, that the new linebacker coach is the type of teacher who can utilize it and make him a guy you can use 20, 25 snaps a game.
Do you see this happening?
I think they'll find a role for him, whether that's 5 snaps a game or 25 snaps a game. I'm not sure, but yeah, I don't think he'll be completely buried on the bench. I also don't see him getting enough snaps to be an all-conference type player.
What do you say? All right, I'm going to say Justin Flo in his career has 1 sack. 1 sack in his career. Over or under 3.5 this season?
Under.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's
kind of. I think I'd go over 1.5.
So you think he's going to have 2 sacks?
Yeah, I think you could scheme him into 2 sacks.
Yes, and Dennis Walsh says Manu is Flo's opposite. Yes, if you combine Jacob Flo and if you could combine Jacob Manu and Justin Flo, you would seriously have Lawrence Taylor. That's what you would have.
Yeah, I mean Manu's a good athlete. He's just small.
Right.
It's not like we've seen some other guys who have been athletically challenged. But are great football players. Manu is a good athlete. He's just 5'10", which again is a little bit overrated for what he does because you don't line Manu up on a tight end to cover.
Right.
He's not durable. Height has nothing to do with durability.
Right.
It's the stupidest thing when I hear the reason we worry about Speedy Luke being durable is not because he's 5'8". It's because at one point he was 145 pounds.
Yeah.
Notice no one ever really says Jonah Coleman Jonah Coleman was 230 pounds. He was 5'8".
Right.
As a short guy myself, my lack of height has never led to my injury. My lack of athletic ability and my age leads to injury. Now, so I think that's dumb.
Joseph says, Joseph, you're right and you're wrong, in my opinion. Flo makes the tackle that Haimuli didn't that would have won the USC game. The problem, though, is that you don't know that Flo would have been in position to make that tackle. That's the issue. Would he actually have been where he was supposed to be at that point? That is, and again, you've had a bunch of different coaching staffs that have said just that.
No, and that's the thing. No one's doubting his athletic ability, his strength. There's been some guys come through this program, I'm sure all programs, that are weight room warriors. I think Flo's a little bit better than that, but we're off the charts athletic testing and ability. It's just they're not football players.
Right. Now.
And whether it's cerebral or that lack of instinct.
Right.
And there's some guys who are soft, but he's not soft.
Not soft at all.
Nick Costa was a guy who could bench press 500 pounds, throw a ball 70 yards, and was scared to death to take a hit.
Yes.
This is not Justin Flo. Justin Flo, it's just, again, I don't know if it's instinct or cerebral. And those are 2 slightly different things, or it could be a combination. Yeah. But he just all too often isn't where he's supposed to be.
And that's the point. It's not, yes, he can make the tackle that Haimuli couldn't, but you just don't know if he's going to be there to make the tackle. That is the difference. All right. So we will keep an eye on Flo. I think he has a spot, but we will see on that. All right. Now the great Erica L. Day is joining the chat. Hello, Erica L. Day. All right. Now with let's talk the offensive line, because we saw against Oklahoma, without Jordan Morgan, it got very perilous, and it got very perilous very, very quickly. Here's where I'm at with the O-line. I believe that this O-line should be good. There are 4 different guys that are returning on the O-line with a lot of experience, including 2 NFL guys. Jonas Sabanea is on I almost said NBA draft charts, MNBA draft charts. He is on NBA or NFL draft charts. He could.
Is that the MNFL?
The MNFL. Yes, exactly. Jonas Sabanea is Jonas Sabanea again on first round boards. Wendell Moy is another guy that's probably going to be picked. Josh Baker is going to be a 3-year starting center. Leif Magnuson is solid. You've got to get somebody else to fill that 5th spot. And I believe there is no reason they shouldn't, William. What say you?
I've heard really good things about the kid from Northwestern.
All right.
Behind the scenes.
All right.
I've heard good things.
You're calling for the Deuced boost.
I am. I've heard some really good things. And now whether that's as that 5th starter or as a swing player who fills in a variety of roles, but he's turned some heads. They have some bodies. Yeah, again, to me, it's very similar to the defensive line. I worry about the depth.
Right.
If a guy goes down, and again, can they overcome that? Because they have guys who are super intriguing.
Right. Let's talk Polito for a second.
Polito's that guy.
You want Polito. If Polito can stay healthy, then he would be that guy. Again, I worry about, is this a Mike Chaska situation where people that don't know, Mike Chaska went to our school, our alma mater, Saguaro. He was considered probably the best offensive lineman in the entire country.
Parade All-American, yeah.
Yes, Parade All-American, correct. But he came to Arizona and he was always hurt. Polito has been here for a year and a half, and he's basically been hurt the whole time. I need him to, if he can stay healthy, I think that alleviates a lot of concerns there, William Brad Alice.
Yeah, I think if he's healthy, he's probably the guy.
Yeah.
After I just tout another guy, but that's based on hearsay, and the other's based on what my eyes showed me last year when the kid was healthy.
Right.
Again, there's a reason Alabama wanted him. So yeah, if Polito can stay healthy, if he can, avoid some of the both on and off the field injuries, I think because of the injury issues and the acclimating to college, it sounded like that might have been a little tough. That it's tough as a true freshman to play, even though we saw that from 7A and Moy. I think Polito can be a guy who is counted on by this team.
All right, so we will find out about that certainly now. One person to keep an eye on, ladies and gentlemen, one person to keep an eye on. I'm very intrigued by Jonah Rodriguez. He went to San Diego State last year, redshirted. He was a top 50, kid out of California, borderline 4-star kid, depending on which rankings you look at. He's going to be in the mix as well. I mean, I'm intrigued to see what he can do there, William.
Yeah. Don't know enough about what went on at San Diego State, why, how he was there, but he's a guy who on paper is the kind of transfer you take, very well regarded, had some lot of talent coming out of high school. On the opposite end, you have the transfer from San Jose State, the guy who's 37 years old, who's a war horse, who, if he starts
Cam Rising, that's how old he is.
Yeah, but if he starts, you kind of know what you're going to get. Just reliable. He won't be a game breaker, but it also means a lot of your young guys, a lot of your transfers weren't ready to go.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, now with let's talk a little bit about what do we want to talk about here? The rest of this O-line then. So are you in agreement though that this should be able to be a pretty good O-line? When you've got 4 guys returning, we shouldn't see the disaster we saw against Oklahoma.
No, and you have several months to build that chemistry. Again, you have that infusion of transfers, some of them veteran transfers. The offensive line coach is well regarded. I think what you had is even though you had a month to prepare for that bowl game, Oklahoma had some dynamic pass rushers. And I think, they kind of lack some chemistry, and you can't lose a Jordan Morgan without having some repercussions. But now you've had a whole offseason to prepare.
Now, with Arizona, if Arizona was able to get 3 first-round picks, what would that mean for the program?
It would mean that your prediction of a first place finish is probably accurate. And I don't think it's ridiculous to be talking about 3 first-round draft picks with the 3 guys you mentioned. I also think it's also going to be really hard to have 3 drafted because it just has never happened.
We've never had 2. The closest we came was Trung and Dennis.
Was that 20 or 30 and 31 or something like that? One was the last pick of the first round.
First of the second. Yeah.
But if you look at it, I don't see a scenario with T-Mac unless he just has all kinds of injuries or off the field issues, which I don't think happens, going first round. The other 2 guys have first round ability. It kind of depends how teams' boards shake out.
Right.
Savanea, does he end up being a guard in the NFL? In which case it's hard to go first round as a guard.
This is going to be a big year for him at tackle. This is going to be a big year for him to see how he grades out.
And then you also look at it, does Davis show that he is a starting caliber from day one? Because when you draft a cornerback in the first round, you are drafting a starter.
Right.
And we saw last year teams did not put an emphasis on cornerback in the draft. A few went early, then a bunch fell. Conversely, what was it 3 years ago when you had 4 in the top 10 or whatever with Sauce Gardner and those guys? So it just all depends also how this draft shakes out. What are teams' needs? But if he can show that he is a lockdown NFL type corner, then he could sneak into the first round. If he looks more like a guy who's going to be that swing corner, that extra corner, he's a guy who could drop. But you're going to have at worst 3 guys going in the first 3 rounds.
Yeah. All right. Now with Tucson Davis, I don't see why there's any reason though that he couldn't be. First of all, he just got to learn how to catch the ball. The guy would have had 13 interceptions last year. I mean, he dropped, I think, 3 interceptions in 1 half against, I think it was Oregon State or Washington or whatever the case may be. And he strikes me as somebody that also is going to test well. That's the other thing why it's interesting. I think Jonah and Tucson Davis will both test very well.
Again, some of it's position. Right. If they see Jonah as a guard and not a tackle, then he probably doesn't go first round.
Right.
Just because, again, you have to be. I mean, again, just look at the number of interior offensive linemen who go that high.
Right.
When you can find the best center in football year after year, you usually are drafted rounds 2, 3, 5. It's a position of need. Again, it's like running back now. And linebacker, you don't take many in the first round.
Right.
Same thing. Again, do they see Davis as that premier number 1 corner? Then he's a first rounder. If they see him as a guy who is a slot corner, or if they see him as a guy who is a number 2 type corner, then no, you don't, unless you were just a team that is 1 corner away. You could see him slide. And again, it's also who comes out. The NFL draft is interesting because we've all seen guys we thought were surefire first round ability fall, and we've seen guys you're like, I don't even know who that is. Usually because the Raiders are picking them. But even look at last year, everyone was convinced that Cooper DeJean was a first round draft pick, one of the fastest guys. He fell to the second round.
Now, where would you put all right, now we're going to move over to a little bit Arizona basketball here. I wanted to ask you this. We haven't been able to talk about this. I wanted to ask your opinion. Listen, I think with the transfer portal, it makes, with Tommy Lloyd, the dude's an A+. I don't think that there's any doubt about it. You bring in Caleb Love, you bring in Keyshawn Johnson, you bring in Pella Larson, you bring in Jaden Bradley. I mean, I can keep going. You get the gist. Umar Ballo, leader of men. Now, is his domestic recruiting? Because what I'm talking, international has been a flop, obviously, so far. But do you worry at all about the domestic recruiting aspect? Because, again, you got KJ Lewis, who's obviously a contributor. Then you got Kylan Boswell, who really wasn't very good here, but he was a 5-star kid. Carter Bryant's a 5-star kid. But that's basically it with domestic high school kids. Do you worry at all about this yet, William?
No.
I agree.
It's about roster construction. Because at one point you had those 2 other kids, and you basically said, do we want Sonnen for 1 year or do we want Caleb Love for 1 year?
Right. Now, Chris says Matherin was not a bust. I'm talking about guys that he recruited.
Yeah, he recruited. Yes. And to me, and this is going to sound crazy, when Caleb Love is more of a sure thing, not only on the court, but off the court, because again, we know that Sonnen has people in his ear, and there was the NIL stuff. You know, I know people are freaking out over Will Riley. At the end of the day, you got outbid, and I don't think you want to get into bidding wars. I mean, I think you say, hey, this is what we're willing to spend. There's some flexibility, but because then you're going to alienate your other players. If suddenly you find out Caleb Love's like, wait, this guy get more NIL than me, and he's not starting, but because we had to keep him away from Illinois. So yeah, I'm not worried yet. Now, if they can't make another deep run, then it's time to reevaluate roster construction. But right now, I like what I see.
I do believe, though, in the 2025 class, you got to get some of these players, though. You got to get a Braden Burries or you got a Koa Pete. You got so I think you got to get a couple good high level players, in my opinion, in that class.
Yeah, I think you do too. Again, you can't. I don't think you can live completely on transfer.
Right.
So you got it. Or unless you start figuring out this international thing. But again, so far, it's been okay.
Again, but again, you got to get the tournament. Let's be honest here. I mean, we like Lloyd a great deal. I like Lloyd a great deal, but the tournament's been a little bit of a disappointment so far. That's going to be the next test for him, is to be able to get over that hump.
Yeah, and again, if your roster construction of going international and transfer heavy doesn't work, then yeah, you might need to reconsider and go, okay, we're going to play with 8 freshmen and sophomores.
Right.
With a couple veteran, with more of the Kyer type guys just to be glue guys.
For sure. All right. He is the great William Brad Allis. Everybody out there, very much appreciate you guys hopping in there. You are all the best. We will hopefully have a SAR update tomorrow there, Andy Bryan. But William Brad Allis, very much appreciate you hopping in here, my man.
Going to try every Tuesday, although next week might be a little tough.
All right. Well, just let me know. But on that note, everybody out there, you're all the best. Very much appreciate. We'll be right back. We'll be with you tomorrow, 10:30. Jason Scheer back in the realm. But Brad Allis, we're going to try to keep you on every Tuesday when you can. But for William Brad Allis, I am merely Mike Luke. You have been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.